When you think about Tommy Egan, one thing is always true. He never lets a mistake hang around long enough to destroy him. Every time someone tries to back him into a corner, he finds a way to flip the situation. And the way he handled Agent Vargas' death is a perfect example of that. Because in that moment, Tommy didn't just survive. He outplayed both the streets and the feds. By the time the dust settled, Vargas was dead, the FBI was scrambling, and Victor Flynn was left holding the bag. Let's unpack how that really happened. Agent Vargas had been a quiet but dangerous presence in Power Book 4, Force. He was the kind of Fed who liked to operate from the shadows, watching, waiting, collecting dirt instead of rushing in with cuffs. He wanted Tommy, but he also wanted the bigger picture. His obsession wasn't just about getting a conviction, it was about control. Vargas thought he understood Tommy, thought he could use him as a piece in a larger chess game. But Tommy doesn't play by anyone else's rules, especially not the government's. At first, Vargas' plan looked solid. He was tracking Tommy's every move, getting close to CBI, even using internal conflicts within the organization to tighten the net. He had informants, street intel, and access to surveillance Tommy didn't know existed, or so Vargas thought. The truth is, Tommy was already 2 steps ahead. He knew the feds were watching, he just didn't know who was pulling the strings. But when Vargas started pressing closer, showing up in spots he shouldn't have known about, mentioning deals he couldn't have heard about, Tommy put the pieces together. Someone in law enforcement had gone too deep. Now, when it comes to survival, Tommy doesn't panic. He plans. He doesn't get emotional, he gets surgical. And the key moment came when Vargas finally overplayed his hand. After a close call involving one of Tommy's runs, where the product almost got intercepted, Tommy realized that the leak wasn't coming from CBI or his crew. It was coming from Vargas. Someone had tipped off law enforcement with exact timing and routes. That's when Tommy made his decision. If Vargas wanted to play games, Tommy would end it permanently and make someone else take the fall. But killing a Fed isn't simple business. You don't just do it and walk away clean. It's one of the few crimes that gets the full weight of the government behind it. So Tommy couldn't just eliminate Vargas. He had to bury him politically, socially, and criminally. He had to make sure that by the time the FBI investigated, they'd already have a suspect lined up. And that suspect was Victor Flynn. Now, Victor wasn't innocent by any stretch. He was desperate, paranoid, and drifting without real direction after his father, Walter Flynn, started losing his grip. Tommy knew that. He knew Victor's emotions made him sloppy. He also knew that Victor was under more pressure than he could handle, between family expectations, the power vacuum in Chicago, and the growing heat from the feds. So Tommy started planting seeds. Before Vargas' death, Tommy had already been seen in minor disputes with Victor. Things that looked personal but were really strategic. He wanted the streets to think there was real tension between them. Every small argument, every loud confrontation was designed to build a record. That way, when the time came, it wouldn't look like a setup. It would look like a natural feud that escalated out of control. The real setup came the night Vargas died. Tommy arranged a meeting, not directly, but through intermediaries, the kind of street runners and informants that move messages without realizing they're being used. Vargas thought he was walking into a situation where he could finally corner Tommy, or someone tied to his operation. In reality, Tommy was never going to show. The scene was staged to make it look like Vargas was investigating Flynn territory. Tommy had learned that Vargas was tracking Flynn's movements and that Victor had recently been in contact with a low-level informant who also had ties to Vargas. That was the perfect overlap. Tommy used it to set the scene, location, timing, evidence. He arranged for Vargas' body to be found near one of Victor's distribution spots, in a car that tied back to Flynn's network through falsified connections. He made sure the shell casings, the residue, and the burner phones led right to Flynn's operation. And when the time came, he disappeared. The aftermath was chaos. The next morning, the FBI found Vargas dead, and suddenly all roads pointed toward Victor Flynn. His fingerprints were found on evidence, not because he was there, but because Tommy had used stolen items from Flynn's operation that already had his prints on them. The feds immediately assumed Vargas was killed while investigating Flynn territory. On paper, it made perfect sense. Tommy was never even in the conversation. Meanwhile, Tommy played it cool. He acted as shocked as anyone. When the news broke, he kept his circle tight, his mouth shut, and his movements clean. To the outside world, he looked like a man caught in the middle, not a suspect, not a victim, just another player trying to stay alive while the city went into lockdown. That's Tommy's genius. He knows that sometimes invisibility is the best defense. But the brilliance of this move wasn't just in how he executed it. It was in how he controlled the narrative. Because once the feds had Victor Flynn in their sights, the streets followed. Everyone started whispering that Flynn had finally gone too far, that he'd killed a Fed, that he was radioactive. No one wanted to do business with him. His name became poison overnight. And Tommy didn't even have to lift a finger to finish him off. The system did it for him. This wasn't just revenge or self-preservation. It was strategy. By pinning Vargas' death on Flynn, Tommy accomplished three things at once. First, he eliminated a federal threat without exposing himself. Second, he took out one of his biggest street rivals without firing a shot. And third, he sent a message to anyone watching: don't cross him. Because if you do, you won't even see it coming, and you won't have anyone left to blame. It's also important to understand what this means for the power dynamics in Chicago. With Vargas gone, the FBI loses one of its most active players in the field. Their intel weakens. Their cases slow down. They're left scrambling to justify how an agent ended up dead under their watch, and they're desperate for a suspect. Victor Flynn, with his record, his family's criminal history, and his unstable behavior, fits the profile perfectly. That gives Tommy room to breathe, rebuild, and move in silence. But even with the perfect setup, Tommy knows nothing stays buried forever. He's seen it before. Evidence resurfaces, witnesses talk, alliances shift. So while the Vargas frame job buys him time, it also raises the stakes. One slip, one loose end, and the feds could circle back. That's why Tommy stays calculated. He cleans his tracks, repositions his network, and keeps his alibis tight. Everything he does after Vargas' death is about distance, emotional, physical, and operational. And let's not forget Victor's side of things. From his perspective, he's being hunted for something he didn't do. But Victor's history makes it impossible for anyone to believe him. He's been violent, reckless, and unpredictable for years. So when the feds come knocking, he has no credibility. That's exactly what Tommy wanted: plausible deniability backed by public doubt. The streets see Victor as guilty. The law sees him as guilty. Tommy doesn't even need to defend himself, because no one's looking at him. What makes this whole situation so smart is that it's rooted in Tommy's understanding of how people think. He doesn't just react, he anticipates. He knew the feds would look for a familiar name, someone already on their radar. He knew Victor's enemies would be quick to believe the worst. And he knew that by the time anyone figured out the truth, if they ever did, it would be too late. The damage would be done, and Tommy would already be 3 moves ahead. In the end, that's what separates Tommy from everyone else in the game. Where others panic, he plans. Where others fight, he manipulates. And in the case of Agent Vargas, Tommy turned a deadly problem into an opportunity. He cleaned his hands, destroyed a rival, and reminded everyone from the feds to the streets that he's untouchable when it comes to strategy. So while the world believes Victor Flynn is the man who killed a federal agent, Tommy's walking free, expanding his empire and smiling behind the scenes. Because in Power Book 4, Force, survival isn't about being the strongest, it's about being the smartest. And once again, Tommy Egan proved that he's both. For more videos, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.